can there be a system of points or non-points that can actually give an unbiased rating of a wine? I mean,
I don't personally think so, because wine is such a subjective subject matter. Your palate is as unique and as different as a fingerprint.
Right.
And so to say that something can be objective when in nature it's a subjective matter, I don't think that there can be anything definitive. I really think you need to understand the individual's palate that is reviewing the wines and assigning that score to it, and then basing whether you are going to enjoy that wine or not enjoy that wine based off of that individual's palate.
Right. Yeah. How does your palate stack up to the critics?
Do you enjoy the same flavor profile as the same style of wine that critic X is rating it a 95?
And I don't think that it's necessary to have a rating system at all. And now I think that we're seeing that we're seeing this happening more and more with social media and just greater connectedness is what I would call it, right? Yeah. But what we're talking about is somebody rates a wine, understanding what that person's palate is and how they're rating the wine, and whether or not your palate corresponds and coincides with that is what we're talking about. Knowing who that rater is and what stylistically that rater wants and likes, right? It's totally unnecessary if you have somebody who is trustworthy, who understands, who you can form a relationship with, who understands your palate and can suggest things to you that you like, and whether that's at a restaurant, at a retailer, whether that's online, whatever. Like it comes back to the customer service and the service portion of it, right? Sure. Or if there is a system, and this is where, for me, I think this is the direction that we're headed. I don't know that scores will ever go away, but especially with again social media, we're having to try to explain ourselves and try to describe how a wine tastes or what a wine's like or the quality that is apparent in the bottle in smaller and smaller bits, in shorter and shorter sentences.
Yeah, 140 characters or less.
Or less, right? Well, until now it's been 2 characters or less. 3 characters and you're selling out, right? 100,
Oh,
right?
Right, exactly.
or 90s, right? Like so for us, like now, I think that we're in a really good spot in terms of moving away from that sort of monolithic, that obtuse, like this is a stamp that says this is graded as a B or C, and where people are opening up to the idea, and they're able to digest 140 characters or less, and they're willing to digest a smaller portion. And by the same token, we're not, as wine professionals, we're not being nearly as boorish about our descriptors and our descriptions.
Just drink some juice kind of stuff.
Yeah, just have some fun with it.
And I think, to your point, I think that the score system has played less of a significance in the industry over the past 5 years to exactly what you're speaking to. And we can look at specific producers. Christoph Hedges at Hedges Winery in Red Mountain, I think, is one of them. He has an entire score revolution where he will not allow his wines to be assigned a number.
Right.
His wines, he feels, are kind of above that, and he wants an individual to put that wine on their palate or to take the recommendation from the sommelier or their favorite retailer that the wine's good. And there's a whole manifesto you can go online and sign up for if you're a supporter of that. And I think it all goes to what you're saying, and the kind of, I don't want to say the insignificance that we are seeing in scores, but 5 years ago, 90 plus sold, and now I have tons of 95 rated wines in my warehouse that are just sitting there. People are trusting themselves more and trusting the industry professionals that are providing them with information, which is a great thing.
Yeah. Do you think that it has gotten having a surplus of 90 plus wines in the warehouse or whatnot? Is it because of a dilution of what a 90-point wine is, because the percentages of wines that are ranked higher has gotten more so, or is it because people are now more opposed to scores and therefore they're not buying those specifically?
I think it goes back to what Devon was saying. I don't see it as an opposition. I see it more as they are trusting us to do our jobs, and they're putting more faith in our palates and the relationships that an individual has formed with us, and they're trusting us that, hey, this is good. I wouldn't be giving it to you if it wasn't. So use me as your guide.
Right.
Use me as your advocate or your spectator, and
I
I won't steer you wrong.
There are just a lot more wines being reviewed across the world.
Yeah.
Right? There's tons more wine. I mean, to bring it back to what we were talking about, the critics specifically, Robert Parker, when he started his review, he was only reviewing Bordeaux's.
Right.
Right? Like there's just more wines being reviewed.
Yeah. A couple of the issues that I've always found with giving a concrete score to a wine is a lot of times ageability isn't accounted for. It's not factored in, although they will give like a little bit of a 95 to 98 type of range.
Sure.
But also value for the price point is never something that's really considered, because a $10 bottle of wine might be an $82 or an 82 point wine, but for the cost,
For
it's great.
$10, it's
right?
still awesome.
And then also, really, a lot of the scores don't think about food at all. It's just like what within this style. So I always kind of have an issue with that too. But what about blind tasting for giving scores? I mean, do you guys think that should be blind? Shouldn't be blind?
I mean, I would say that for it to truly be a level playing field, no matter what, then yeah, you would have to taste everything blind. But the context with which something is tasted means a lot, and which is why there's an inherent flaw in the whole scoring system as it is.
Anyway,
yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
is a $10 wine that scores 89 points inherently 10? Is it 10 times better than a $100 wine that scores 89 points? Right, like, right. At some point, one has to rely on their own palate and their own sensibility.
There's too many variables that go into a rating system. I mean, and it's exactly what you're talking about. Like, we can have this wine today, and it's good or it's great or it's just okay. We have this wine tomorrow night with food in a setting with our friends and a fire, and this wine could be exponentially better.
Right.
And I would challenge anyone who adamantly defends a position that tasting a wine while sitting at the winery with the winemaker or the owner of the winery is categorically the exact same experience as tasting a wine while sitting in one's office with the clutter surrounding and the emails going off and their cell phone there and everything else, right? That's it's just not possible. The same way for me that having a great bottle of Burgundy sitting at dinner with my friends is way different than having a great bottle of Burgundy, sitting at home by myself, even if it's the same bottle of wine, right? It's just, and we have customers all the time that come in and say, "Oh, I had this wine over in Italy, and it just tastes better over there."
Right.
Of course it does.
Because you're
all
on
the time.
vacation,
In Italy.
right? Like, come on.
Yeah.